On the 14th of October, 1066, a group of men stood on a hill in Sussex and changed the history of England forever. They had crossed the Channel from Normandy in a fleet of around 700 ships. They fought all day against Harold Godwinson's Anglo-Saxon army, and by the time the light faded over Hastings, Harold lay dead and England had a new king. Those men, William's companions, were rewarded with land, titles, and the wealth of an entire kingdom. Within a generation, nearly the entire landholding class of England had been replaced by Normans, and their names became the names of England's greatest families. Some of those names are still here, in phone books, in offices, and families across the English-speaking world. If yours is one of them, your surname may connect you to one of the most significant moments in European history. William the Conqueror was himself a descendant of Rollo, the Viking who became the first Duke of Normandy in 911 AD. Rollo was granted Normandy by the Frankish king Charles the Simple at the Treaty of St. Clare sur Epte. William was Rollo's great-great-great-grandson. The men who came with William in 1066 were Norman nobles, cousins, kinsmen, vassals, and allies of the ducal house. Family Search's genealogical research notes, anyone who can show a descent from a medieval English baron could probably show a descent from all 10 documented companions of the conquest. One honest note before we begin, having one of these surnames does not prove you personally descend from the original Norman family. Many people bear these names for reasons unrelated to the original family. What I can document is the family's history. 3 categories today. Category A, direct kinsmen of William the Conqueror. Category B, documented companions who received royal grants. Category C, noble families who married into the royal line within 2 generations. 20 surnames, their royal connections, their extraordinary stories. Number 20, Neville. Category C, married into the royal line. Neville derives from Neuville in Normandy. The royal connection is specific. Ralph de Neville, the first Earl of Westmoreland, married Joan Beaufort in 1396. The legitimized daughter of John of Gaunt, son of King Edward III, Joan was therefore the granddaughter of an English king. Their grandson Richard Neville, the 16th Earl of Warwick, the kingmaker, made Edward IV king, and when Edward proved insufficiently grateful, unmade him and restored Henry VI. Warwick was killed at the Battle of Barnet in 1471, fighting against the king he had once created. Through his grandmother Joan Beaufort, he was a great-grandson of Edward III. The kingmaker had royal blood, and it came through a Neville marriage to a king's granddaughter. Number 19, Ferrers. Category C, Earls of Derby, Magna Carta barons. Ferrers, from the French Ferrière, an iron mine, appears in the Domesday Book as one of England's largest landholders, with Tutbury Castle in Staffordshire as its principal seat. The Ferrers became Earls of Derby, connected to the royal line through marriages into the de Clare family, kinsmen of the Conqueror. William de Ferrers, 4th Earl of Derby, was one of the 25 barons appointed to enforce Magna Carta in 1215. Robert de Ferrers, 6th Earl, rebelled against Henry III and was stripped of his earldom in 1266, imprisoned and forced to surrender his lands, the ironworker's name, the Derby earldom, Magna Carta, and a downfall at royal hands. Number 18, Bigod. Category C, the bold god who stood up to a king. Bigod came with the conquest. Roger Bigod built Framlingham Castle in Suffolk, still standing, where Mary I was proclaimed Queen of England in 1553. The royal connection runs through marriage into the de Clare line, but the most remarkable Bigod moment came in 1297. Roger Bigod, 5th Earl of Norfolk, refused to serve King Edward I in France without royal pay. Edward threatened, "By God, Earl, you shall either go or hang." Bigod replied, "By the same oath, O King, I will neither go nor hang." The spirit of men who had conquered England with a king and would not simply obey one. Number 17, FitzAlan. Category B, married a king's great-granddaughter. FitzAlan, son of Alan, derives from a Breton nobleman who came with William. The royal connection is this. Richard FitzAlan, 3rd Earl of Arundel, married Eleanor of Lancaster, great-granddaughter of King Henry III. Their son Richard FitzAlan, 4th Earl of Arundel, was of documented Plantagenet descent and became one of the Lords Appellant who briefly controlled the government of King Richard II. He was beheaded on Tower Hill in 1397, reportedly defiant to the last. The FitzAlan name merged with the Howard family, producing the Howard Dukes of Norfolk, England's premier Catholic family, son of Alan, a king's great-granddaughter, a beheading at the Tower. Number 16, de Bohun, Bohun. Category C, daughter of Edward I. The royal connection here is the most direct of any family on this list below number 1. Humphrey de Bohun, 4th Earl of Hereford, married Elizabeth of Rhuddlan in 1302, the daughter of King Edward I of England. Their children were grandchildren of a reigning English monarch. One of those children, Mary de Bohun, married Henry Bolingbroke, who became King Henry IV. Mary de Bohun was grandmother of King Henry V and great-grandmother of King Henry VI. The Bohun family didn't merely touch the royal line, their direct descendant sat on the throne. If your name is Bohun, a daughter of Edward I married into your family, her grandson was the victor of Agincourt. Number 15, de Tosny, Tony, Category A, claimed descent from Rollo's uncle. The de Tosny family claimed descent from Malaholks, described by the medieval chronicler Orderic Vitalis as an uncle of Rollo of Normandy, the Viking founder of the Norman dynasty. If accepted, the de Tosny family were cousins of the Norman ducal line itself, predating William the Conqueror by a generation. Roger de Tosny came to England in 1066. His son Ralph de Tosny carried the standard of Normandy at the Battle of Hastings, one of the most significant roles at the most significant battle in English history. The family that claimed descent from Rollo's uncle, standard bearers at Hastings, possibly of older Norman blood than the Conqueror himself. Number 14, de Vere. Category C, Lord Great Chamberlain, 561 years of one earldom. De Vere derives from Vere in Normandy. Aubrey de Vere appears in the Domesday Book. His grandson became the first Earl of Oxford in 1142, and the de Veres held that earldom continuously for 561 years until 1703, the longest tenure of a single earldom by one family in English history. The de Vere Earls served as Lord Great Chamberlains of England, responsible for the ceremony of royal coronations. Hedingham Castle in Essex, built around 1140, still stands. Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford, is the leading alternative candidate in the Shakespeare authorship debate. The scholarly consensus remains with Shakespeare of Stratford, but the debate has given the de Vere name an extraordinary second life in literary history. 561 years of one earldom. The men who dressed kings for their coronations, and perhaps the greatest mystery in English literature. Number 13, Mowbray. Category C, hereditary Earl Marshal, married into Plantagenet blood. Mowbray derives from Montbray in Normandy. The family became Dukes of Norfolk and hereditary Earls Marshal of England, responsible for organizing royal coronations and maintaining royal dignity at state occasions. Thomas de Mowbray, 1st Duke of Norfolk, married Elizabeth FitzAlan of documented Plantagenet descent, making their children of royal blood. Shakespeare immortalized Thomas Mowbray and Richard II. The play opens with him and the future Henry IV accusing each other of treason before King Richard. He dies in Venetian exile. His speech accepting banishment, lamenting the loss of his native English tongue, is one of the most poignant in all of English drama. Hereditary power at every coronation, royal blood through marriage, and immortality in Shakespeare. Number 12, Lacy. Category B, direct royal grant. Builders of the greatest Norman castle in Ireland. Lacy derives from Lacy in Normandy. Ilbert de Lacy was a documented companion of the Conquest, receiving vast estates in Yorkshire, including Pontefract Castle. Hugh de Lacy received the lordship of Meath directly from King Henry II in 1172. He built Trim Castle in County Meath, the largest Norman castle in Ireland, with walls 3 meters thick and towers 21 meters high, still standing today. Hugh de Lacy was assassinated in 1186 by an Irish axeman while inspecting castle construction. He had become so powerful that King Henry II had begun to fear him. The companions received their lands directly from a king. The de Lacys were among the most generously and dangerously rewarded. Number 11, Percy. Category B, Hotspur's wife was the great-granddaughter of Edward III. Percy derives from Percy and Auge in Calvados. William de Percy appears in the Domesday Book among the wealthiest Norman barons in Yorkshire. The Percys became Earls of Northumberland. Alnwick Castle, still their seat today, doubled as Hogwarts in the first 2 Harry Potter films. The royal connection, Henry Hotspur Percy married Elizabeth Mortimer, great-granddaughter of King Edward III. Through her, Hotspur's descendants carry Plantagenet blood, making the Percy family politically dangerous to Lancastrian kings who knew exactly how close the Percys were to the royal line. Hotspur was killed at the Battle of Shrewsbury on the 21st of July, 1403, having rebelled against Henry IV, the very king whose throne he had helped secure against Richard II. He was 39 years old. Shakespeare immortalized him in Henry IV, Part 1, as brave, impetuous, and fatally unable to wait. Die all, die merrily was his spirit. His father, Henry Percy, 1st Earl of Northumberland, survived and continued to rebel, dying at the Battle of Bramham Moor in 1408. From Percy and Auge in Normandy to Alnwick Castle to Hogwarts, one of England's longest journeys in a single surname. Number 10, Beaumont, Category A, documented kinsman of William the Conqueror. Beaumont derives from Beaumont le Roger in Normandy. Robert de Beaumont is documented as a close associate and kinsman of William the Conqueror, who commanded the right wing of William's army at Hastings. He was richly rewarded with the earldom of Leicester. His twin sons, Roger de Beaumont, 2nd Earl of Warwick, and Robert de Beaumont, 2nd Earl of Leicester, became two of the most powerful men in England, effectively running the kingdom between them during Stephen's reign. A kinsman of the Conqueror who commanded at Hastings, whose sons ran England when the king could not. Number 9, Montgomery. Category A, most trusted companion and kinsman of William. Montgomery derives from Montgomery Castle in Normandy. Roger de Montgomery is documented as a powerful Norman magnate and a close relative of William the Conqueror, trusted so completely that William left him to govern Normandy while the invasion fleet crossed the Channel. If the invasion had failed, Roger de Montgomery would have held Normandy. There was no greater expression of trust. After the conquest, he received the earldom of Shrewsbury. Montgomery Castle on the Welsh border and the county of Montgomeryshire still bear his family's name, the most trusted man in Normandy, who governed it while his king conquered England. Number 8, Gifford. Category A, kinsman of the Norman ducal house. Gifford derives from the Norman family of Longueville. Walter Gifford was a trusted companion of the conquest who received the earldom of Buckingham, one of the most significant grants William made. The Gifford family were kinsmen of the Norman ducal house through documented Norman genealogy. The earldom ended when Walter's son died without male heirs, but Walter Gifford, Archbishop of York of a cadet branch, became Lord Chancellor of England under Henry III, a kinsman who became an earl, whose cousin's descendant became Lord Chancellor. Number 7, de Warenne. Category A, possibly married William's daughter. De Warenne derives from La Warenne in Normandy. William de Warenne was among the first and most generously rewarded companions at Hastings, receiving the earldom of Surrey. The direct royal connection, he married Granddaughter, who historical sources claim was a daughter or stepdaughter of William the Conqueror himself. Whether Granddaughter was truly William's daughter is historically contested, but the de Warenne family claimed and believed this royal descent throughout the medieval period. William de Warenne, 6th Earl of Surrey, commanded the English forces at Stirling Bridge in 1297, where William Wallace used the bridge as a tactical trap to catastrophically defeat the English cavalry. Lewes Castle and the unique round keep of Conisburg Castle, both still standing, were de Warenne strongholds. Number 6, de Mandeville. Category B, made great by a king, destroyed by the same king. Mandeville derives from Mandeville in Normandy. Geoffrey de Mandeville, 1st Earl of Essex, extracted his earldom from King Stephen as a political bribe during the anarchy, playing both Stephen and Empress Matilda against each other with extraordinary cynicism. He was eventually arrested by Stephen while attending the royal court and released only upon surrendering his castles. He then launched a rebellion from the fens of East Anglia, was mortally wounded by an arrow in 1144, and because he had been excommunicated, his body was wrapped in lead and hung from a tree at the Temple Church in London until the Pope lifted the excommunication. Made great by a king, destroyed by the same king, buried wrapped in lead from a London tree. Number 5, de Clare or Clare, Category A, kinsman of William, descended from Rollo himself. De Clare is the most directly documented royal connection on this list, below number 1. Richard Fitzgilbert de Clare is documented as a kinsman of William the Conqueror, whose great-grandfather was Richard I of Normandy, grandson of the Viking Rollo. The de Clare family descended from the Norman ducal blood itself, not servants of the dynasty, not allies, but blood relatives. Richard de Clare came to England in 1066 and became one of England's most powerful barons. The family controlled over 190 manorial lordships across England, Wales, and Ireland. They built Caerphilly Castle in Wales, the second largest castle in Britain after Windsor, with a concentric ring of walls and water defenses so formidable that it never fell in medieval combat. Richard Strongbow de Clare invaded Ireland in 1170 and married Aoife McMurrough, Dermot McMurrough's daughter, becoming Lord of Leinster. Their union is commemorated in Daniel Maclise's famous painting in the National Gallery of Ireland, one of the most iconic images of medieval Irish history. a kinsman of the Conqueror. Descended from Rollo, who married a Gaelic princess, whose family built the second largest castle in Britain. Number 4. De Vaux, Category B, direct royal grant, held the King of Scotland captive. Vaux derives from Vaux in Normandy. Hubert de Vaux received lands in Cumberland directly from William the Conqueror, making the family lords of the northern marches against Scotland. They built Naworth Castle in Cumberland, still standing today, and served as hereditary constables of Carlisle Castle. Robert de Vaux held William the Lion, King of Scotland, captive at Falaise in Normandy after William was captured in battle in 1174. Service to the crown so consistent that the de Vaux name became inseparable from Northern English royal administration, and they once held a King of Scotland in their custody. Number 3. Beauchamp. Category C. Great-great-grandchildren of Edward I presided at Joan of Arc's trial. Beauchamp derives from Beauchamp in Normandy. Thomas de Beauchamp, 3rd Earl of Warwick, married Catherine Mortimer, whose grandmother Joan de Genneville was a granddaughter of King Edward I. Their son was therefore a great-great-grandson of Edward I. Richard de Beauchamp, 5th Earl of Warwick, was the most celebrated English knight of the early 15th century, guardian of the young King Henry VI, and praised across Europe as the father of courtesy. He presided at the trial of Joan of Arc in Rouen in 1431, the process that condemned her to be burned as a heretic. The beautiful field, whose descendants were of royal blood and whose most celebrated member presided at Joan of Arc's trial. Number 2. Osborne, Category A, closest kinsman and friend of William the Conqueror. William FitzOsbern is described as William's closest friend and kinsman and one of the most powerful men in Normandy before the conquest. Before the invasion, it was FitzOsbern who addressed the Norman barons and helped convince them to support William's audacious plan to cross the Channel and claim England. His personal credibility was crucial to the decision being made at all. He was so trusted that William appointed him CO Regent of England while returning to Normandy in 1067, not a deputy, but co-regent, sharing power with Bishop Odo of Bayeux. He received the earldom of Hereford and built Chepstow Castle overlooking the River Wye in Wales, one of the oldest surviving post-Roman stone fortifications in Britain, begun in 1067 and still standing today. He spent his tenure in England aggressively pushing the Norman frontier into Wales, establishing the pattern of marcher lordships that would define Anglo-Welsh relations for centuries. He died in 1071 at the Battle of Cassel in Flanders, fighting in someone else's war, as was the Norman way. His death left William without his closest companion. The surnames Osborne and Osborne traced to this family, the most trusted friend of the Conqueror. Number 1. De Montfort, Category A, married a king's sister, defeated a king in battle, created parliament. Simon de Montfort, 6th Earl of Leicester, arrived in England in 1230. In 1238, he secretly married Eleanor of England, sister of King Henry III, daughter of King John, granddaughter of Henry II. When it became known the scandal nearly destroyed him, there was outrage among the English nobility. Simon and Eleanor had to temporarily flee the country, but the marriage stood, and the royal connection it created defined everything that followed. Simon de Montfort led the baronial revolt against Henry III, driven by genuine conviction that the king was governed by favorites and ignored the common good. He defeated and captured the king at the Battle of Lewes in May 1264, one of the most dramatic reversals in medieval English history. For 15 months, he effectively ruled England in the king's name. In January 1265, he summoned what is generally regarded as the first representative parliament of its kind in English history. Not the first parliament to meet in England, but the first at which knights and burgesses were summoned not merely to grant taxation, but to have their say on how the kingdom should be governed. 2 knights from every county, 2 representatives from every major town. They were there to govern, not just to pay. He was killed at the Battle of Evesham on 4 August 1265. His army outmaneuvered and destroyed by the future Edward I. His body was mutilated by the victorious royalist forces. His tomb at Evesham Abbey became a place of popular veneration for decades, and ordinary people regarded him as a martyr and flocked there seeking miracles. His parliament survived. It became the model for the House of Commons, the representative principle he established that the governed should have a voice in their governance, eventually became the foundation of parliamentary democracy across the English-speaking world. A kinsman of the Norman ducal house, who married a king's sister, who defeated a king in battle, and whose parliament is still sitting. If your name is Montfort, you carry the name of the man who invented parliament. 20 surnames, all Norman, all connected in documented, historical, verifiable ways to the royal line that began when Rollo received Normandy from a Frankish king in 911 AD. Their names are still here: Warenne, Percy, Neville, Clare, Montfort, Beaumont, all connected at some point to the line that runs from Rollo's longships to the throne of England. If yours is one of them, and if you can trace your line back to medieval England, the probability of a royal connection is, as genealogists say, extremely high. Tell me in the comments, which of these surnames is yours? If this video was worth your time, a like genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into the bloodlines that shaped history.